Hello, my name is Benjamin Harper. I am 32 years old. I work as a freelance carpenter in Portland, Oregon. And I never believed in signs until the night Sofia Delgado met me outside the prison gate with tears in her eyes and whispered those words that would change everything. If you go now, don't look back. She said it like a prayer, like a warning, like the last thing she would ever say to someone she cared about. I am standing here now, 6 months later, watching the sunrise paint the mountains gold through my kitchen window, and I can still hear her voice, still feel the weight of that moment when everything I thought I knew about love and loyalty and doing the right thing got turned upside down. The coffee in my mug has gone cold while I have been lost in the memory. But I cannot seem to move away from this window, cannot stop thinking about how we got to that gate, how we got to those words, how we got to the choice that split my life into before and after. It started 3 years ago at a community center in Southeast Portland. I was there installing new cabinets in the kitchen, part of a renovation project the neighborhood had been fundraising for. The place smelled like sawdust and fresh paint, and I was measuring twice, cutting once the way my father taught me before he passed. I had my headphones in, some old Johnny Cash playing low when I felt someone watching me work. She was leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed, wearing scrubs that suggested she had just gotten off a shift at the hospital. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she had this way of looking at you like she could see right through whatever front you were putting up. I pulled out my earbuds and straightened up, suddenly aware that I probably looked like I had been wrestling with 2x4s all day, which I had. "You are the carpenter," she said. "Not a question." "Guilty as charged," I replied, wiping sawdust off my hands with a rag. "Benjamin." "Then, Sophia." She pushed off from the door frame and walked closer, examining my work. "My grandmother used to say you could tell everything about a person by how they treated wood. Said it was honest material. Would not lie for you if you tried to rush it or force it into something it was not meant to be." I looked at the cabinet I had been working on, the careful joints, the way I had matched the grain. Smart woman she was. Sophia ran her fingers along the edge of the cabinet door, testing the smoothness. She would have liked this. Clean lines, no shortcuts. Before we see how this ends, tell us where you are watching from and hype this video in the comments. I would love to know I am not alone in believing that some stories are worth telling, that some connections are worth fighting for even when the odds seem impossible. That first conversation lasted maybe 5 minutes, but something about it stuck with me. Maybe it was the way she talked about her grandmother with this mix of love and loss that I recognized from my own relationship with my father. Maybe it was how she looked at my work, really looked at it like it mattered. Or maybe it was just the way she smiled when she said goodbye, like she was keeping a secret she might tell me someday if I prove worthy of it. I started finding excuses to work later at the community center, hoping she would stop by again. She volunteered there 3 evenings a week, teaching basic computer skills to older adults in the neighborhood. I would hear her voice drifting from the main room, patient and encouraging, as she helped someone figure out email or video calls with distant grandchildren. There was something beautiful about watching her work. The way she never made anyone feel stupid for not knowing something. The way she celebrated small victories like they were major accomplishments. It took me 2 weeks to work up the courage to ask if she wanted to grab coffee after one of her classes. She said yes so easily that I wondered if she had been waiting for me to ask. We went to this little place called Stumptown. Nothing fancy, just good coffee and the kind of worn wooden tables that had stories carved into them by years of conversations. That is where I learned that Sophia was a nurse at OHSU, that she had grown up in the same neighborhood where the community center sat, that her grandmother had raised her after her parents died in a car accident when she was 12. She had this way of talking about difficult things without asking for pity, just stating facts like they were weather reports. Rain today, parents died, sunny tomorrow. Learn to be strong. What about you? She asked, stirring sugar into her coffee. Always been a carpenter. Learned from my dad, I said. He had this old workshop in our garage. Taught me that working with your hands was honest work. Said there was something pure about taking raw materials and making something useful, something beautiful. Had cancer. Took him 5 years ago. I found myself using her matter-of-fact tone like if I said it simply enough it would not hurt. I kept his tools, still uses old level sometimes when I am working on something important. She nodded like she understood, and I realized she probably did. Loss recognizes loss, finds its own kind of comfort in shared understanding. We started meeting for coffee once a week, then twice. Then, whenever our schedules align. I learned that she read mystery novels voraciously, that she made the best tamales in Portland, according to her coworkers, that she had a scar on her left hand from trying to fix a garbage disposal herself because she was too proud to call a handyman. I told her about the cabin I was slowly building in the mountains, about my dream of having a workshop where I could create furniture that would last generations, about the way I still heard my father's voice sometimes when I was measuring cuts. 3 months into whatever we were calling this thing between us, she invited me to dinner at her apartment. It was a small place in Hawthorne filled with plants and books and photographs of people who looked like they had lived full complicated lives. She cooked those famous tamales, and they were everything her coworkers had promised. We ate by candlelight not because it was romantic, but because her overhead light had burned out and neither of us had thought to replace the bulb. I should fix that for you, I said, looking up at the dark fixture. I like it better this way, she replied. Softer light makes everything look more forgiving. That night after dinner, after we had talked until the candles burned down to nothing, she kissed me for the first time. It was gentle and sure, like she had been thinking about it for a while and had finally decided the moment was right. I kissed her back, tasting coffee and possibility, feeling like I had been holding my breath for months without realizing it. We fell into a rhythm after that. I would work my jobs during the day. She would work her shifts at the hospital. And we would find each other in the spaces between. Sometimes at her place, sometimes at mine, sometimes just walking through the neighborhood talking about everything and nothing. She had this way of listening that made me want to tell her things I had never told anyone. And I found myself opening up about the loneliness I had carried since my father died. About the way I sometimes felt like I was just going through the motions of living instead of actually living. You know what I think? She said one evening as we sat on her fire escape, watching the city lights flicker to life below us. I think we are both afraid of the same thing. What is that? Letting someone matter too much? Getting so attached that losing them would break us. She was right, of course. I had been keeping people at arm's length since my father's death, telling myself it was easier to be alone than to risk that kind of pain again. But with Sophia, the walls I had built started feeling less like protection and more like prison bars. 6 months into our relationship, she told me about Marcus. We were at my place and I was cooking breakfast while she sat at my kitchen table grading some papers from her computer classes. The morning light was streaming through the windows, making everything feel warm and possible when she said his name for the first time. There is something I need to tell you about my brother. I turned from the stove, spatula in hand, and saw something in her expression that made my stomach tighten. You have a brother, have it is complicated. She set down her pen and looked out the window. Marcus Fletcher, he is in prison. The egg sizzled in the pan while I processed this information. For what? Armed robbery. He got caught up with the wrong crowd after high school. Made some bad choices. He has been in for 18 months now. Has at least 2 more years left on his sentence. I turned off the burner and sat down across from her. Why did not you tell me before? Because I was afraid you would judge him. Judge me. People hear prison and they make assumptions. What kind of assumptions? That he is a bad person. That I am a bad person for still caring about him. That our family is somehow broken or dangerous. She finally looked at me and I could see the vulnerability she had been hiding. He is not a bad person, Ben. He is just someone who made terrible decisions when he was young and scared and angry about losing our parents. I reached across the table and took her hand. Tell me about him. So she did. She told me about the brother who used to read her bedtime stories after their parents died, who worked 2 jobs to help their grandmother pay the bills, who taught her how to change a tire and throw a curveball and stand up to bullies at school. She told me about how he started hanging out with older kids who dealt drugs. How he got deeper and deeper into that world until one night he walked into a convenience store with a gun and walked out with 300 and a felony conviction. I visit him every month. She said, I know it is a lot to ask, but I would like you to come with me sometime. I think you would like each other. The first time I met Marcus Fletcher, I was prepared to dislike him. Not because of what Sophia had told me, but because of what she had not said. The way her voice got careful when she talked about him, like she was walking through a minefield of old hurt. But the man who sat across from us in the prison visiting room was not what I had expected. He looked like Sophia around the eyes, had the same way of really seeing you when he talked. He was thin in the way people get when they are eating institutional food and worrying too much. But his handshake was firm and his smile was genuine when Sophia introduced us. "So you are the carpenter," he said. "Sophia talks about you all the time. Good things, I hope. She says you are teaching her about woodworking. Says you are patient with her even when she measures wrong." Sophia laughed. "I only measured wrong once. 3 times I corrected," and Marcus grinned. "She has always been stubborn about admitting mistakes. Drives our grandmother crazy." We talked for an hour about normal things. Marcus asked about my work. Told me about the carpentry program he joined in prison, how he was learning to make furniture that would be donated to families in need. Sophia told him about her classes at the community center, about a new doctor at the hospital who reminded her of their father. It felt surprisingly natural, like sitting around a kitchen table instead of in a room full of guards and security cameras. As we were leaving, Marcus pulled Sophia aside for a private moment. I could not hear what they said, but I saw the way his expression changed. Saw Sophia shake her head firmly at whatever he had asked. When she came back to me, she was quiet during the drive home. "Everything okay?" I asked. "He wants me to stop visiting for a while." "Why?" "There has been some trouble with his cellmate. Nothing serious, but Marcus thinks it might be safer if I keep my distance until things settle down." I did not think much of it at the time. Prison politics seemed like something I could not understand from the outside. And if Marcus thought it was best for Sophia to stay away, then maybe he was right. But over the next few weeks, I noticed changes in her. She was distracted during our conversations, checking her phone constantly, jumping at unexpected sounds. The truth came out on a Tuesday night in March. Sophia had been unusually quiet during dinner, picking at her food and staring out the window like she was watching for something. Finally, I set down my fork and asked what was wrong. "Marcus called me today," she said. "From prison. He is not supposed to call, but he found a way." "What did he say?" "He is in trouble. Real trouble. There is this guy, Victor Ramirez, who runs things on Marcus's block. Marcus owes him money." "How much money?" $5,000. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "For what?" "Protection. Marcus was getting hassled by some other inmates, and Ramirez offered to make it stop, but nothing is free in there. And now Ramirez wants payment. What happens if Marcus cannot pay?" Sophia's hands were shaking as she reached for her water glass. "Ramirez made it clear that if Marcus cannot pay, he will find other ways to collect. He knows about me, Ben. He knows where I work, where I live." The room felt like it was tilting. "Are you saying this guy is threatening you?" "Not directly, but Marcus says Ramirez has connections outside, people who do favors for him. Marcus thinks I might be in danger if he cannot come up with the money." I stood up and started pacing, my mind racing through possibilities. We called the police, report the threats. With what proof? Marcus's word against Ramirez. And even if they believed us, what happens to Marcus when Ramirez finds out he talked? So what is the alternative? Sophia was quiet for a long moment. "Marcus has a plan. There is going to be a transfer next week. Some of the inmates being moved to a different facility. During the transfer, there might be an opportunity." "An opportunity for what?" "For Marcus to get away." The words hung in the air between us like smoke. I sat back down trying to process what she was telling me. "Sophia, you are talking about a prison break. I am talking about my brother's life. And what about your life? What about us? If you help him escape, you become a fugitive too." "I know." Her voice was barely a whisper. "I know what I would be giving up." We talked until dawn, going in circles, weighing impossible choices. Sophia was torn between her loyalty to Marcus and her fear of losing everything she had built. I was torn between my love for her and my belief that helping a prisoner escape was wrong. No matter the circumstances. Over the next few days, Sophia became increasingly anxious. She had gotten more details about Marcus's plan. The transfer was scheduled for a Friday afternoon. There would be a moment, Marcus said, when the transport van stopped at a checkpoint, when the guards would be distracted by paperwork. If someone was waiting at a specific location with a car, if they moved fast enough, it might work. "I cannot ask you to be part of this," Sophia said on Thursday night. We were at her apartment and she was packing a bag with shaking hands. "But I cannot abandon him either. There has to be another way. There is no other way." She stopped packing and looked at me. "I have thought about this from every angle, Ben. If I do not help him, Ramirez will hurt him. Maybe kill him, and then he might come after me anyway just to send a message. And if you do help him, then what? You spend the rest of your life running? Maybe. Or maybe we get away clean. Start over somewhere else. We, Marcus and me. I cannot ask you to come with us. I will not ask you to give up your life for my family's problems." But she was asking in a way, not with words, but with the look in her eyes, the way she kept glancing at me like she was memorizing my face. She was asking me to choose between the life we had built together and the moral certainty that helping a prisoner escape was wrong. Friday came gray and drizzling, typical Portland weather that matched my mood. I went through the motions of work, installing trim in a new house, but my mind was elsewhere. Sophia had left early that morning, kissing me goodbye like it might be the last time, and I could not shake the feeling that I was about to lose her either way. 3 o'clock, my phone rang. Sophia's number. "It is happening," she said. "I'm at the location. The van should be here in 20 minutes. Sophia, please do not do this. I have to. I love you, Ben. I want you to know that whatever happens next, I love you." The line went dead. I drove to the location she described, a rest stop off Highway 26. My hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles were white. I did not know what I was going to do when I got there. Try to talk her out of it. Help her. Call the police. My mind was a storm of conflicting impulses. I arrived just as the prison transport van was pulling into the rest stop. Sophia's car was parked at the far end of the lot, engine running. I could see her silhouette in the driver's seat. Could imagine the tension in her body as she waited for Marcus's signal. The van stopped near the restrooms. 2 guards got out, one heading inside while the other started checking paperwork. Through the van's rear window, I could see the prisoners in their orange jumpsuits. Could see Marcus looking toward Sophia's car. What happened next took maybe 30 seconds, but it felt like slow motion. Marcus somehow got his restraints loose, slipped out of his seat, and made it to the van's rear door. The guard outside turned just as Marcus pushed the door open and jumped out. There was shouting, confusion, the second guard running back from the restroom. Marcus sprinted toward Sophia's car, but he did not make it. The first guard tackled him maybe 20 feet from the van, and they went down hard on the wet asphalt. More shouting, backup being called on radios, the sound of sirens in the distance. I watched Sophia's car sit motionless for a moment, then saw her get out and start walking toward where Marcus was being restrained. I knew what she was thinking, knew she was about to do something that would destroy her life to save his. That is when I made my choice. I got out of my truck and ran toward her, catching her arm just as she reached the edge of the parking lot. "Sophia, do not. I have to help him. You cannot look around. There are witnesses, cameras, backup coming. If you get involved now, you will just be arrested, too. And then you cannot help Marcus at all." She looked at me with tears streaming down her face. "Then what am I supposed to do? We leave right now before someone connects you to this. I cannot abandon him. You are not abandoning him. You are staying free so you can help him legally. Get him a better lawyer. Appeal his case, visit him when he is allowed visitors again. But if you get arrested now, you cannot do any of that." For a moment, I thought she was going to pull away, run toward her brother anyway. But then she looked at the scene unfolding in front of us, at Marcus being loaded back into the van and even more restraints, at the police cars arriving with her lights flashing, and she nodded. We walked back to my truck together, Sophia looking over her shoulder every few steps. As we drove away, she was silent except for the sound of her crying. I reached over and took her hand, and she held on like I was the only thing keeping her from drowning. The next few weeks were the hardest of our relationship. Marcus was moved to a maximum security facility and put in solitary confinement. Sophia blamed herself for not helping him, and I blamed myself for stopping her. We barely talked, just went through the motions of our daily lives like actors playing roles we no longer understood. Sophia threw herself into work, picking up extra shifts at the hospital, volunteering more hours at the community center. I buried myself in projects, taking on more jobs than I could reasonably handle, working until my hands were raw and my back ached. We were both running from the same guilt, the feeling that we had failed someone we loved. It took a month before Sophia was allowed to visit Marcus again. She asked if I wanted to come with her, and I said yes, even though I was not sure he would want to see me. The man who sat across from us in the visiting room was different from the one I had met months earlier. Thinner, more guarded, with new scars on his knuckles and a weariness in his eyes that had not been there before. "I am sorry," Sophia said as soon as we sat down. "I am sorry I could not help you." Marcus looked at her for a long moment, then at me. Then stopped. "You did not." Sophia nodded, and I braced myself for anger. Accusations may be worse. But Marcus just smiled. The first genuine smile I had seen from him since the failed escape. "Good. Bunna," he said. "That is exactly what I hoped he would do." Sophia and I both stared at him. "What?" "I never wanted you to help me escape, Sophia. I wanted you to have someone who would stop you from doing something that stupid. But you called me. You told me about the plan. I told you about it because I knew you would feel like you had to help. And I knew if Ben really cared about you, he would find a way to stop you." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "I've been watching you two together, seeing how happy you are. I was not going to let you throw that away from me. But the threats from Ramirez, the danger. Ramirez is a blowhard who talks big, but does not have nearly as much power as he pretends. And the money I owe him, I have been paying it off by doing carpentry work for the guards. Turns out there is a market for handmade furniture, even in prison." Sophia looked like she did not know whether to laugh or kremen. "So, the whole escape plan was never going to work. I made sure of that, but I needed you to think it was real. Needed to see if Ben would choose you over some misguided sense of loyalty to me. I felt like I had been holding my breath for a month and could finally exhale. You set us up. I tested you, both of you. Sophia, I needed to know you had found someone worth staying out of trouble for. And Ben, I needed to know you would put Sophia's well-being above everything else, even when it was hard." "That is incredibly manipulative," Sophia said, but she was smiling through her tears. "That is love," Marcus replied. "Sometimes the people we care about need protection from their own good intentions." The drive home from the prison was quiet, but it was a different kind of quiet than we had had in weeks. Sophia held my hand the entire way, and I could feel some of the tension leaving her body. When we got back to her apartment, we sat on her fire escape again, watching the sun set over the city. "I am sorry," she said, "for putting you in that position, for making you choose. You did not make me choose. I chose. And I choose the same way again, even knowing it meant letting Marcus down. Marcus was never counting on us to break him out. He was counting on us to be smart enough not to try." Sophia laughed. The first real laugh I had heard from her in weeks. "My brother is either brilliant or completely insane. Maybe both." We started rebuilding after that slowly, carefully, like I was teaching Sophia to work with wood all over again. We talked more, shared more of our fears and hopes and dreams. Sophia started sleeping better, stopped jumping at every unexpected sound. I started taking on fewer projects, making more time for the things that actually mattered. 3 months later, Marcus was transferred back to the medium security facility. His sentence had been extended by 6 months because of the escape attempt, but his time in solitary was over and he was allowed regular visits again. When we saw him, he looked more like the man Sophia had first described to me, the brother who read bedtime stories and taught life lessons. "I have news," he said during one visit. "I have been accepted into a program that lets inmates work with a local nonprofit building houses for families in need. If I complete it successfully, I could be eligible for early release." Sophia's face lit up. "That is amazing. There is a catch. The program requires a sponsor on the outside, someone who can provide house." Someone who can vouch for my character and my commitment to staying out of trouble. He looked at me when he said it, and I understood what he was asking. You want me to sponsor you? I want you to consider it. I know it is a lot to ask, and I know you do not owe me anything, but I also know you are the kind of man who judges people by their actions, not their mistakes. And I think maybe we could work well together. I looked at Sophia, saw the hope in her eyes, the way she was trying not to pressure me, but could not hide how much this meant to her. I thought about the cabinet I had been working on when I first met her, about what she had said about would being honest material that would not lie for you if you tried to rush it or force it into something it was not meant to be. Tell me about this carpentry program you have been doing. And I said. Marcus's face brightened and he started describing the projects he had worked on, the skills he had learned, the satisfaction he found in creating something useful with his hands. As he talked, I could see the passion in his eyes, the same kind of dedication I felt when I was working on a piece that mattered to me. I have been thinking, he continued, about what I want to do when I get out. I do not want to just find a job. I want to find a purpose. I want to do work that means something that helps people. What did you have in mind? There is a need in the community for affordable furniture for people who cannot afford to buy new but deserve better than what they can find at thrift stores. I was thinking maybe we could start something together, a workshop that makes quality furniture for working families. Maybe even teaches woodworking skills to kids who need positive outlets. I found myself nodding as he talked. It was a good idea, the kind of work that would honor both the skills my father had taught me and the values Sophia had shown me about giving back to the community. I would need to see your work first, I said. And we would need to start small, see how we work together, of course and there would be conditions. You would live in the apartment above my workshop, at least at first. You would check in with your parole officer regularly. No shortcuts, no bending rules, no matter how small they seem. I understand. And if you screw this up, if you do anything that puts Sophia at risk or makes me regret this decision, you are on your own. No second chances. Marcus nodded seriously. I would not expect any. Sophia reached across the table and squeezed both our hands. Thank you, she whispered to me. The program Marcus had applied for was competitive, and it took another 2 months before he was accepted. During that time, I started preparing for the possibility that he would be living and working with me. I cleaned out the apartment above my workshop, made sure it had everything he would need for a fresh start. I also started researching the legal requirements for sponsoring a prole, making sure I understood exactly what I was committing to. Sophia helped with the preparations, and I could see how much it meant to her that I was willing to take this risk for her brother. But I was not just doing it for her or even for Marcus. I was doing it because I believed in second chances, in the possibility that people could change and grow and become better versions of themselves. The night before Marcus's release, Sophia and I lay in bed talking about the future. She was nervous, excited, scared all at the same time. What if it does not work? She asked. What if Marcus cannot adjust to life outside? Or what if you two do not get along? Then we will figure it out as we go. But I think it is going to be okay. How can you be so sure? Because he is your brother and you do not love people who are not worth loving because he has spent 2 years thinking about what he wants his life to look like. And that kind of reflection changes a person. And because I have seen his work, and anyone who can put that much care into a piece of furniture can probably put the same care into rebuilding their life. Marcus was released on a Thursday morning in September. Sophia and I picked him up at the prison gates, and as we drove away I saw him looking back at the building in my rearview mirror. Any regrets about leaving? I asked. None, he said firmly. I am ready to start over. The first few weeks were an adjustment for all of us. Marcus was grateful but also proud, eager to prove himself, but sometimes frustrated by how slowly things moved on the outside. Sophia was protective but trying not to hover, wanting to help but not wanting to enable. I was patient but watchful, giving Marcus space to find his footing while staying alert for signs of trouble. But gradually we found our rhythm. Marcus proved to be a skilled carpenter and a thoughtful partner. He had ideas for improving our processes, suggestions for new projects, and a work ethic that matched my own. More importantly, he had the kind of perspective that comes from having lost everything and fought to get it back. Our first big project together was building a dining room set for a single mother who worked 2 jobs and was saving up to buy her first house. She could not afford furniture store prices, but she wanted something that would last, something her kids could inherit someday. Marcus and I worked on it together for 3 weeks, and when we delivered it, the look on her face made every hour worth it. "This is beautiful," she said, running her hands over the smooth surface of the table. "It is exactly what I imagined when I dreamed about having a real dining room." As we drove back to the workshop, Marcus was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, "I forgot what it felt like to make someone happy instead of making them afraid. How does it feel like maybe I can be the person Sophia always believed I was?" 6 months after Marcus's release, Sophia and I were having dinner at our favorite restaurant when she brought up something that had been on both our minds. "I have been thinking about us," she said, "about where we are going, what we want. What do you want?" "I want to build something with you. Not just a relationship, but a life, a real partnership." "Like what?" "Like maybe it is time we stopped living in separate apartments and found a place together. Like maybe we should start talking about marriage, about having kids someday, about all the things we have been dancing around for the past year." I reached across the table and took her hand. "Is that a proposal?" "It is a conversation starter." "Then let us start the conversation." We talked for hours that night about our dreams and fears, about the kind of life we wanted to build together. Sophia wanted to expand her work at the community center. Maybe start a program that taught basic life skills to people getting out of prison. I wanted to grow the furniture business. Maybe bring in other craftspeople who shared our vision of creating quality work for working families. "What about Marcus?" Sophia asked. "How does he fit into all this?" "He is family. He will always have a place in our lives. Even when we have kids, even when things get complicated, especially then, kids need to see that families stick together, that people can change and grow and deserve second chances." A year later, Sophia and I were married in the community center where we had first met. Marcus walked her down the aisle, and in his speech at the reception, he talked about how love sometimes means letting people make their own choices, even when those choices are hard to watch. "My sister taught me that family is not just about blood." He said it is about the people who show up for you, who believe in you even when you do not believe in yourself, who help you become the person you are meant to be. "Ben, you did not just marry my sister, you became my brother. And I promise to spend the rest of my life being worthy of that gift." 2 years later, Sophia and I bought a house with